Hi, I'm Jason Haward-Grau. I had the pleasure to chair a panel at the NACD Texas Tri-City chapter in September talking around cybersecurity and what do you need to do during and after a breach or a cyber attack. My colleagues have talked a lot about a lot of different things. For those of you who weren't in the room and didn't have the opportunity to listen, I'm going to focus on probably the most important facet, at least in my opinion, which is what are the roles and responsibilities that the board of directors versus the C-suite need to have in mind during and after a breach. So probably the first and most important thing to remember is that the board's role is predominantly left of the boom. So this is all of the pre-planning, all of the setting out the right roles, responsibilities, and capabilities to ensure that the organization is prepared for the eventuality that a cyber attack is going to occur. It is not a question of if, it's always a question of when. And the way that you respond to something is the way that your organization will deal with that incident. So the plan up front, think about being left of boom. That's the responsibility. So the main differences between the board's role and the C-suite's role during the crisis is actually to a significant degree, the C-suite is responsible for identifying, managing, and resolving the incident, providing appropriate steering, guidance, and support to ensure it's done as efficiently and effectively as possible. The board of directors' role is predominantly one of a passive receiving insight and information. They are not accountable for the recovery of a situation. They are responsible purely for taking insight and information, with one exception, I would say. The exception that normally comes to mind is where there is a requirement to report to any form of regulator, specifically in this case, likely the SEC or similar. There is an occasion where the board is accountable for involvement in that, and they will take that role normally through the CFO. So the other question that I normally get asked an awful lot is, well, what's reasonable for the board to do in the midst of a cyber attack, and what isn't reasonable? Because most people, unfortunately, when a cyber attack occurs, there is a significant amount of pressure. Often there's a lack of clarity, and the organization itself is struggling to work out what's actually going on and how do we get out of the situation we are in. So what's normally reasonable for the board to do is to actually ask for periodic updates and ask where they can help. Is there anything they can bring, other external parties that they can influence that will support other requirements that they have to do these things? If that's the case, that's great. But if it's not the case, really the board's job ultimately is to provide support, air cover, and where appropriate, ask for updates in a reduced fashion. I've worked with a number of recoveries on over the course of the last 3-4 years, in fact, probably longer. The challenge often is not that the board don't want to get involved. The challenge is the opposite. The challenge is the board want to be too involved. So remembering the processes that you've defined and the roles and responsibilities that you should have put in place prior to the cyber attack is crucially important. Human behavior often goes downhill under pressure. And this is one of the most pressured situations that a board will face. So understanding how they will be responded to, when they will be responded to is crucially important. I think the last thing to think about here is recognizing that not everybody can get involved. So having a typically defined core crisis management team that will be responsible for daily updates up and down the chain is the most effective way of doing that. And you should define that up front prior to the event. But in the event that that hasn't happened and you're in the middle of an incident, the typical core crisis team is normally the CIO, the CFO, the CEO, if there's a requirement, external counsel, and your chief legal officer. That is the core group who are accountable for ensuring that the organization is set on a path to recovery and make all the key decisions that are necessary to restore service as quickly as possible and make the big decisions as to whether or not there is going to be interaction with or discussion with the threat actor who is attacking you. That's all I wanted to cover today. Hopefully that was of use to you. Look forward to our next session.